So here we go. I'm recording this now, but I'm going to record this again. So, what to do with an Afro? Here we go. 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 With the live stream, Born in Trouble 2026, day one. What be going on, people? Did you miss me in 2025? I'm sure you did. Long story with that one. And I'm going to break this down. And by the way, the name of this show, this return of this show is called What to Do with an Afro. Because as you can see, there's a whole head of hair and it's all unkempt on top of my head. But there's a story behind that, and we're going to get into it as we get into this hour. But in case you're unfamiliar or in case you forgot, I'm your host, John X, one of the realest mofos on the internet, formerly on the internet, long-time blogger, internet guy since early 2000, original Black Planet super friend. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that was my first really exposure to mass media at that point in time. I was just like many other people, I had a membership on Black Planet where I had over, I believe at one point it was over like 400,000 people on my page and on my blog, and we used to do a lot of good things. And I always feel like that's always a lost website. It's a lost place because it's something that it's a place where we used to go and we used to conversate, and now can't really do that as much because we've got Facebook, which is different. Our Facebook allows all these different people to see your conversations and get involved with what you're doing, and try to get themselves and put their opinions in there. And one of the things about Born in Trouble is that not everybody's opinion is important. I don't even feel like a lot of times my opinion has been important or been relevant, but we're going to get into that a little bit deeper. But I'd like to thank everybody for anyone who's actually going to listen to this show or this podcast. I did keep my podcast up last year. And, just to explain what happened and where I've been. Here's the weird thing about where I've been. Last year when I was doing the podcast, at the end I was looking to rebrand the podcast, and I had done a post, and I put the post in as essentially the end. That was actually the title of the podcast, was The End, because what I wanted to do was I planned on changing the format, doing a little bit more in-depth stuff, getting a little bit deeper into what was going on in the real world, maybe even getting a little bit more serious with the podcast. What happened after that point in time was something that was beyond my control. If you had been a listener to my podcast before, you know that I had a life-changing event where I had blood sugar of over 1,300 at one point, which is like extremely impossible. Most people who have blood sugar that high are in the ground somewhere or in your ocean now, because their ashes were burned and they were put into the water, and that wasn't the case with me. I came back from that a month later, amazed everyone, or amazed my doctors at the very least. And this year was a similar situation. I had a fight with a monster. And I didn't know I had the monster. I wasn't planning on it. I was going through life just like everybody else was going through life. And I was diagnosed. And luckily, my doctors were really great. They were right on the ball. I kind of got the diagnosis in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, it seemed like 2 weeks later, seemingly I had already started radiation and chemotherapy. And that took me out. And this is part of the reason behind the Afro, because I know most people, if you've ever gone through a situation like that, you go through radiation, one of the things they tell you is that you're probably going to lose your hair. Most people lose their hair, but for me, it had an opposite effect. My hair started growing like a weed. And I kind of feel like, with everything and a lot of things that I've learned over the years about your locks being your glory, I've always had a bald head, either close to a bald head or a bald head, or I've grown it all the way out because your locks are your glory. I like to have that connection. I like to feel close to the sun. I like to have that connection. And right now, when that happened and it started to grow out, I kind of feel like it was kind of a message or a blessing to not cut my hair. So right now, I don't know what to do with it exactly. I don't know whether I'm going to keep it as an afro, whether I'm going to go get it braided. Before, when I had my hair braided, it was done by the young lady who I no longer live with. So I would have to figure out how that would actually work out. But more importantly, though, I went through this aggressive treatment, lost a lot of weight, a lot of weight. And I didn't make any announcement either. I didn't go on Facebook. I didn't tell a whole bunch of people what I was going through. I felt like that would be probably too much or overkill. I just really wanted to focus on my fight and what was going on. The people that were closest to me, my friends, big shout out to you guys, especially the ones that you know from the show, Gene, Rob, Grant. My boy Max was a great help during that time. And they were great with keeping my secret and keeping it down, because at one point, if anybody knows me, if you look in the back, if I even lean back here, you see this weight building up here in my loft in my apartment here. I've always been a very active person. I've always been a very healthy person. And I was a very solid 240 pounds when this started. And at one point, with the chemo and with the radiology, I had actually went all the way down to 155 pounds. And this was just as soon as this was back in September. And once again, during my birthday, I was spending my birthday in a hospital, which was 2 years in a row, which was kind of deep and everything. And as you know, I just want to get this off my chest one time, because I don't think that it's something. I respect the journey that we all go through whenever we go through this fight, and it's not a joke. I can tell you it's not a joke. I ended up in the hospital. There were times where, once again, medical professionals thought that I was not going to make it. I was talking to my wife this morning, and she was explaining to me that, at one point my sodium levels were so high they couldn't believe that I was still alive and I was still walking around. There were other times where there were other treatments. It was very aggressive, my treatment, and I went through it, but my friends really helped me through it. Rob, who, if you know on the show, has always given me a hard time on the show. But one of the reasons why I love the brother is because there were times where when you take this, when you go through this treatment, you're completely and totally out of it. And you can't do anything. You can't think. There's not much you can really do for yourself. And Rob lives closer to Philadelphia because that's where he works. And there were times where I would wake up in the morning in my apartment in Long Island, and I'd open up my eyes and he would be standing right in front of me, And those are the type of friends that you want to keep. Those are the friends that you have that are with you from the beginning, that have been with you from the beginning and are there to your end, and then will be there to your end, and vice versa and everything. Guys like Max, when I went out and I had to do I was still trying to sell properties. Here I am doing this macho thing. I had a listing, running an open house and everything. 2.5 weeks into radiology, and I'm starting to lose my weight, and I can't even stay in the sun, and I can't even walk, and my dumb ass is trying to do an open house. And when I got done with that open house, I had to have my friend come and meet me, we had my friend come and meet me, and he had to help me walk up the stairs to my apartment. So, these friendships and these great things, whenever you're going through something like that, I feel sorry for people who don't have anybody and everything, because I can't even imagine what it would be like to go through it alone. And of course, my lady, who I woke up to she was with me every step of the way. As I lost my appetite, making me go and get the feeding tube that I needed in order to keep food going into my stomach and into my body. At the time, I got so weak that I had to be put into the hospital for a couple of weeks, um, turning around and open up my eyes at all times of the hours and turning to my chair and seeing her sitting there. So this show is really more about thanking all of them for giving me the strength to keep on and to keep going for this year. Because without them, honestly, there are things. And of course, I've got my daughter, I've got my son, I've got my grandkids who I just saw 2 years ago. Just a day ago, they just left me. And those are the things that are more important than anything else in this world. So I just wanted to thank everybody and let you guys know that you thought of. But, I'm pretty much okay. They don't really give you the go ahead or the all clear for like another year. I actually go back and see my doctors in a couple of days. But, to give you an idea, I went from 150 something pounds to now I'm back up to 208 already. So, and that's like kind of like it's a little bit more than I weighed in high school. And I am able to actually walk up and down and do pretty much everything that I was able to do before. Swallowing is a little bit difficult because it was in my throat. That's what you see there. And I've got some cosmetic things that I'm going to be going through over the next month. So not as pretty as I was, but hopefully I'll get back to that beauty that you're all accustomed to. Yes. Yes. But one thing that we all know is that beauty is really comes from the inside. And I have beautiful friends and I have beautiful people that have kept me around for the last year and the last 2 years, really, because when I sat down and I thought about it, I realized that I recognized that I spent more time in hospitals in the past 2 years than I have in my entire life. And for someone who prides himself on being extra strong, it's really been kind of humbling. But according to everyone that I know and my doctors, if I hadn't been living that lifestyle that I had been living without the carbonation, generally basically living healthy all the way, no pork products for over 30 years and things of that nature, and getting enough sleep. I always say when I'm tired, I go to sleep and I don't drink. I haven't really drunk for a number of years, probably. It's almost 20 years now since I've really done any type of heavy duty drinking. And even before that, it was very sporadic. And a lot of things that my doctors have told me is that those are the reasons why I'm still here. And that's made a difference between that and some other things. So, as we get older, even though it's harder and life sometimes hasn't been what we want it to be as we get older, and things sometimes didn't work out the way that we wanted them to work out. And those inebriates kind of help to dull that pain and the disappointment of what's happened and what's transpired in our lives. It's important to remember at times that the most important thing is that we're still here and nobody's perfect. And one thing about going very close to the edge, and that's really what I was close to the edge of this reality and crossing over and going on to the next reality. And a lot of times I've actually thought about that because, there are all these theories and ideas online in different places where people say that if you've gone through a period, if you've actually fell, I'll give an example. When I collapsed at my old apartment over a year ago, and I had the blood sugar of 1,300 at that point. There's a theory that at that point in time, I actually did pass away and I just moved over to a different reality. And in this reality, I survived and I'm a miracle. And the same thing could have happened with this diagnosis of this cancer, which was very extreme and very hard. I thought it was going to be easy. The doctors told me it was going to be easy, but apparently they tell you that so that way you're not really scared and worried about what you're going to be facing. Because I had it pretty rough. I went through it every day and 2 days a week for one thing, but that's neither here nor there. I'm still here. But these things that this revelation that, possibly that it could be a different, that I could be sitting here and speaking to you from a different realm of existence than the one that I began in, is something that I do think about sometimes, but not so much. And being with everything that I went through, I really had to take everybody has different experiences. Some people, they see a light. Some people, they speak to their elders. I feel like I did. And I feel like I got answers to a lot of things. And I feel very humbled by a lot of the things, taking inventory of the things that I've done in my life and the experiences that I've had in my life and my decisions that I've made over the course of my life that have affected others, some for good and some for bad. Some things that I would have liked to have done differently and apologized for, maybe, and others that I probably never would apologize for. And overall, these are the things, this is the makeup and what's in that sack, your purse of life, and what you carry with you into the next existence. And I was told things, and I was told something, and it made me come back to this existence a lot more peaceful, a lot less worrisome, a lot less worried about what other people do. Because you have to understand, when you're empathic as an individual, sometimes you take other people's thoughts and processes and their ideas and you integrate them into your body and into yourself, and you take their feelings. For me, it's like, for example, when I see somebody doing something the wrong way and I know the right way to actually do it, a younger John, my first nature was basically to drive myself crazy to try to get them to do the right thing. And as you go along and you go through life, you realize that that's not the way to go about doing things, because you're really just going to kill yourself. So you get this laid back thing, or at least I got this laid back thing where I could just watch people and just go, huh, I see what that person's trying to do, but it's not going to work out for them so well. And kind of laughing at it, but at the same time, the inside of you, a part of you is kind of dying to get out there and tell that person and help that person to actually get on the right path. But, a lot of it is that people are not going to be accepting of you helping them out. Like, I'll give an example of that. When I was going through chemotherapy and radiation, and I was in a hospital here locally at Stony Brook, and there was a little incident, because chemotherapy is over on one wing and radiation is on another wing. And I had to go back through, and, you would think that if you're a patient and you're just going through radiation treatment, they would allow you just to go directly to your car and go back to wherever it was. But it was a great big thing, and it was a power trip, especially for some of these security guards, that they don't really have anything other to do. That is their power, is to lord over people who are sick and are infirm. And if you know me, you'll know that I never try to put anybody into those types of situations where I'm like telling you what your job is, or I'm putting you in a situation. That's just not my way. I think that's an asshole's way and everything. That's just not what I do. And I try not to be an asshole. That's pretty much my rule of life. It's like, when you walk out the door, just try not to be an asshole to people. And that's it. And one person gave us a problem at this time, and I'm coming through, and they tried to make us go back, and I'm in a wheelchair. I'm in a wheelchair with, braids on my thing. It's obvious I had just came, and they had seen me go back there. And one of the people at the front, one of the concierges, was really beautiful woman, very nice, extremely helpful. And she was just like, come on, I'll walk you through here. But before I even got to her, there was another guy online, and I was trying to explain to him, I was like, I'm not getting on it. I said, I'm not getting on that line with those people, because there are people coming and checking in. And if you've just had radiation, you're not supposed to be around anyone who knows anything about radiation. You're not supposed to be around pregnant women. And it just so happened that there were like 2 pregnant women that were right there in the space. Now, being that they were giving me a hard time, I could have been an ass and just went and jumped behind them, and nobody would have known any different. They wouldn't have known any different. They didn't know why I was staying back or not staying back. And one of the women, Caucasian woman, of course, who was actually pregnant, she was like, "Oh, why are you making a big deal out of everything?" And I looked at her and I was like, not for nothing. I explained to her, I just went through radiation and I'm not supposed to be near you. And I could have just jumped in right behind you and been like, whatever. But since you're so interested in knowing and everything, and then her face, just like her chin just dropped, like automatically, like, okay. Like, like it was just a dumb thing for you to say. You don't know what I'm going through. I don't know what you're going through, and I'm still being nice. And before that, even when I was speaking to the guy, there was something in between there, and I was like, listen, I said, I'm just really trying to, give you the information and help you out. And he goes, oh, you're trying to help me out. You're trying to help me out. I'm like, yeah, just being polite, trying to help you out. And then when I explained to him how I was trying to help him out, he was like, oh, and it was like one of those things where you actually are trying to help me out in the situation. And, but still, the ego was such that, and I guess, man, I don't want to call it the politics or the idealism or just the identity thing that's going on with people today. But it was almost as if, it's these people that are taught, like, never apologize. Don't apologize, no matter what. Right or wrong. So he's trying his best not to apologize, and that's okay. Once again, I don't really care. It's not my issue. But when we're going through these things, when we're going through these people and everything, everybody is so busy trying to get their one spot or to prove their importance to this life. And one thing that I learned in my journey this year was that nothing's really that important. I've never really had a big ego, which is kind of like, which is kind of strange for people when they actually learn that, but when they actually talk to me and they realize it and they recognize that it's never really been a big thing with me. I played basketball for my team, and people are like, "Oh, well, you're a big Brentwood guy and everything." I'm like, nah, I just like playing basketball, and I wanted to do the best at that. I love the competition, I love the game. And I coached afterwards because I love the game. I love the competition. That was just something that was me doing me and everything. I wasn't doing it for you. I wasn't doing it to get popular. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to get girls or anything. Hell, most of the women that I know and everything, even the ones that a lot of them were like, oh my God, I can't believe you're even talking to her and you're friends with her. They'll tell you that I was probably one of the most socially awkward kids. And when I was a kid that you'll ever know, just like everybody else. I didn't know what to do with that because I wasn't interested in doing anything with that. I was more interested in reading my books, playing my basketball, and doing my own thing. And, I've learned a lot of different things over the course of these years that have taught me that, like even, for example, this show. When I started the show, we had great promise. We've done a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of people. I've actually met a ton of people in this industry, in podcasting. Some of them have listened to my podcast and they've taken elements of my show and they've put it into their show and they've made their shows better. And I don't really care about that. I've done over 100 shows and I never really advertised them like everyone else advertised them. And it never pushed the shows the way everybody pushed the shows, because I feel like to a certain extent, when you start pushing these shows and you start doing it, you're not really doing it for the content. You're doing it for your ego. And that's always been an issue with me with everything that I've done, is that you have to always feed. It's always something that feeds your ego. And although I would like for people to listen to what I have to say, I don't really necessarily need for them to actually exalt me and put me on a pedestal because of the fact that I know things. One of the problems that I didn't like, one of the things I didn't like when years ago when Craig Mack lived with me, and the Flavor in Your Ear video was out, and I was in that video, and I couldn't go to a store without people stopping me. And just a simple trip to the store that should have took 2 minutes was taking like 20 and 25 minutes. And it wasn't so much that the people that I actually knew, that I actually liked and I loved and I liked speaking to were stopping me. It was all of the people that really just wanted something. And, they were more interested in casting aspersions. And this is why I love my guy Lawrence. God rest his soul, rest in peace and everything. My guy Lawrence Dansby, who I've known since, he moved in 7th grade and we used to play basketball together and we used to shoot at Timberline together. And he was like one of the only guys who, when I ran into him at a club and we were talking and we were hanging out, and he was like, X, he's like, people talk a lot of shit about you. He was like, but you ain't fucking changed. You still the same dude. And because he recognized that I was still the same person from all those years, and that no matter what, I ain't give a fuck about none of that shit. I ain't give a fuck about none of that. Like, sure, it was great to be in a video and everything and have women be like, he's cute. And then you could really almost choose your woman. But the whole point is, though, I've never been a hoe and I don't like any woman and everything. So it's like, I didn't use that to sleep with every woman that I came across. I've always been picky, so it's like, even that wasn't an advantage to me. I've always wanted other things out of women. This is why, this whole world of, if you don't spend X amount of dollars on me, then you're not a good man, or there's no possible way I would date you or be with you. I think these bitches are stupid as fuck. Holy shit, you're losing every fucking time. Even if you get the money, you're going to drain a man's pockets. You're not saving the money and everything yourself. You're out there spending it as quick as you can fucking get it because you're worried that somebody else is going to come behind you and take it. So basically, you're not ruining one house, you're ruining 2 homes, and you're ruining the potential of what you could do together. And the things that you're really looking for in a mate are not the things that I am looking for or I've ever looked for in a mate. So for me, being a relatively attractive, always been able to make a relatively decent sum of money and everything, all these aspersions that people cast upon you and they put upon you, they place upon you to make you what they are. That's all that this world is about right now. So now you have this thing where people say, if you don't make a certain amount of money, you shouldn't even date women. What the fuck does money have to do with finding somebody that got your back? Let me tell you something. I was in this hospital for all these days. And like I said, I would turn over to my left and I would see my baby sitting in my chair, sitting there waiting for me to come out. It's not because I make 6 figures or because I've taken her out. I won't take her to fucking the Cheesecake Factory. We love the Cheesecake Factory. What the fuck are you talking about? This is not what you look for in a mate. What you look for in a mate is somebody that you can grow with. It's someone that, when your grandkids see her, they call her grandma because she loves them as much as you love them, and vice versa. When your family members see each other, they know that you can't get in between those. You can't get in between that. That's what you look for in a mate, not somebody that can fucking, the bag comes. The money comes. You work together to get the money. It don't matter who makes it or who doesn't make it. It matters how you treat each other. And if you don't fucking get that, you're some sad motherfuckers. There's no possible way I could ever possibly feel bad about not choosing a really good, because I've been there. I've had to drop dead gorgeous woman and everything that people would fight over. And when I basically when that shit ended one way or the other, because I'm always careful as to whether or not to say one thing. Listen, relationships happen, they actually end, whatever, and everything. When they ended one way or the other, I wasn't sad. I wasn't fucked up about it because I lost something that looked good. Because looks don't fucking hold you down all the time. Looks can't always hold you down. And that's basically what it is. And, I just wanted to come back and say this. It's been a long time. I have a lot of stuff that's on my mind. I missed a whole year of topics. We've got this guy in the White House that's like, they're taking all these things and they're using media against you people like in such a terrible way. You know, all these things that they're talking about now, but what they're not talking about is the fact that the Epstein files still haven't been dropped. You know, and that's probably the biggest thing in the world and everything. But you already know. We already know. And I said when he got elected last year, one of the last things I said last year, you can listen to the show and everything. The guy doesn't plan on leaving. It doesn't matter what they say between here and there and everything. And that was just a matter of the bootlickers. Now we see all the bootlickers like lining up and everything. And we know who they are. I don't have to call them by name. We know who they are. The bootlickers are lining up to see what's in there, what's in it for them, what they can get out of it, what they can get out of life, and you know what type of money and bag. And you know, you got bootlickers in the real world. Why would you want to fucking marry a bootlicker or date a bootlicker? Because that's essentially what you're doing when you're dating some of these women that are only going after you for your dollars and everything. Whatever happened to, I'm so glad I grew up when I did, because, you know, I got to sleep with and everything, and this is kind of like raw and everything, but I got to spend time with some beautiful women that just really liked me. And it's nothing more precious than that. And, you know, a lot of people are never going to have that experience because of the way that things are. It's always going to be, you know, we don't let our guards down. We don't know each other and we don't know these things. And really the only thing that can save us from this world of judgment and money and hatred is really love. It's the only thing that can really save us. It's the only thing that can bring us back, caring, you know, concern for what's going on, caring about these kids that are coming up next, caring about your fellow man more than you care about, you know, political ideology and everything. All these people online saying the Republicans, you know, when the Democrats do this or when the Republicans do this and everything, you're all assholes. You're just people and everything. You know, black people telling black people, oh, black people never used to just follow the Democrats all the time. Now, y'all don't know what the fuck black people used to do, because most of y'all are just first generation or second generation like Americans. You don't have black family like that. You don't come from, your black family don't come from a black family like my black family comes from. Where we come from a town, Princeville, North Carolina, that was the first free town in the United States of America, okay? Where we came in and we had our businesses, we had our farms, we did these things, we dealt with Jim Crow. Don't tell me shit about slavery. Talk to me about Jim Crow. Tell me why these crops were priced less than the crops that grew in the white fields, and how that generationally made a difference between different people and everything. Don't tell me what my black people were and what my family was. Everybody in my family is a doctor, lawyer, minister, you know, manager, whatever. And ain't none of them licking your fucking boots. You know what I'm saying? So we may have different ideologies. We may even actually identify differently. But we ain't what you say you are just because you have to feel comfortable. We are the motherfuckers that make you nervous because we know things and we've been through things. And one of those things that we know is that black people never fucking identified with Republican political or Democrat political. We cared about who was looking out for us. If you don't get anything out of it, then they both the same people. Do you not think that that people in the Klan were wearing those robes? Why do you think they cover their heads? Because some of them are Democrats and some of them are Republicans. They're all the same. The fuck are you talking about? They're all the same and they're all different simultaneously. You know, but you want to dumb these people down. So if you want to dumb your people down, that's cool. But I'm going to continue to fucking educate mine and everything. So listen, I've talked a little bit more. I'm going to try to come up with the schedule for the show and maybe bring these guys back and everything, see how everybody's doing. As you can hear, my voice is a little bit different. That's because that's where the cancer was. It was in here. And it's gone back, and I can still have a little bit of problems like drinking and swallowing and things of that nature, but not as bad as it was. And I just want to thank everybody once again for sticking in with me and for coming and listening to my show from time to time and I'm sure nobody has picked up on this one. I'm going to put this up on the podcast. I actually kept the podcast going for the past year, which was a good thing because I didn't want to kill it. And I hope to see you guys more often, and hopefully we can straighten it out. And if you're going to make any comments on the show, please comment. What should I do with this afro? Do I shave it? Do I puff it out like Dwayne on What's Happening? Or do I braid it up? And listen, peace and love, and thank you for all my friends and everything. Once again, I'm so humbled by you guys, and and your friendship and everything that you've done for me and how you've been there. There's so much. There's so many people I can't even cover, in one show. I can't even discuss like everything that they did. But the love is there because I love you guys, man. And that's it. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.